Be seen, be heard. Have you ever walked into a room and felt invisible? Not because you lacked confidence, but because no one seemed to notice the value you carry, the strength, the intelligence, the energy, the presence. But what if I told you being seen and being heard isn't a gift some people are born with? It's a skill anyone can master, and today you're going to learn exactly how. Most people talk because silence makes them uncomfortable. They speak quickly, pour out words, fill every gap, trying to prove something, that they belong, that they know enough, that they matter. But the irony is this: the more you try to prove yourself through endless talking, the less people feel compelled to listen. When your words become noise, people tune out. But when your words are intentional, people lean in. Speaking with intent begins long before you open your mouth. It starts with your mindset. When you walk into a conversation thinking, I just want to say something, you automatically become reactive. You jump in at the first opportunity. You interrupt. You chase moments to talk rather than create moments of meaning. But when you shift your mindset to, I want to add something valuable, everything about your presence changes. Your tone slows down. Your words become more selective. You start speaking from clarity instead of anxiety. The truth is, people don't remember most of what is said in a conversation. They remember the feeling you create, the power behind your words, and whether those words made them think differently, feel differently, or see you differently. That's why the most influential people aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who speak with purpose. They don't talk to escape silence. They talk to shape a moment. Intentional speaking also means being emotionally aware of your audience. Before you speak, take 1 second to observe. What is the energy in the room? What is the emotional state of the person you're talking to? What is outcome you want from your message? When you speak with this level of awareness, your words land with precision. You're not simply expressing yourself. You're connecting. And here is something very few people realize. Silence is one of the most powerful communication tools you have. When you pause before responding, you're not showing hesitation. You're showing intention. You're telling the room, I don't speak just to speak. I speak because what I'm about to say matters. That 1 second of thoughtful silence builds anticipation, authority, and respect. People instinctively listen more closely to someone who chooses their words instead of throwing them around carelessly. Speaking with intent also protects your personal power. When you talk too much, you reveal too much. Your insecurities, your unfiltered emotions, your need for approval. But when your communication is intentional, you communicate emotional control, confidence, and maturity. You show that you're not driven by impulse, you're guided by purpose. Speaking with intent is not about using fancy words or sounding overly wise. It's about having clarity in your message, confidence in your delivery, and purpose in your voice. When you embody that, people don't just hear you, they feel you. They don't just notice you, they remember you. Most people spend their lives trying to convince others of their worth. They talk about what they've achieved, what they know, how hard they work, how much they've sacrificed. They think the more they explain themselves, the more others will respect them. But the truth is the opposite. The harder you try to tell people you're valuable, the more you signal that you're unsure of it yourself. Real value never announces itself. It's felt, it's witnessed. It's experienced through small, consistent behaviors that speak louder than any self-promotion ever could. Showing your value starts with your actions, not your words. When you stay consistent with your commitments, even tiny ones, people begin to trust you. When you show up prepared, when you follow through, when you're reliable, steady, and emotionally composed, people see that you are someone of substance. Value is not built in the big, dramatic moments. It's built in the small, invisible ones when no one is applauding. And when those patterns stack up over time, your presence naturally earns attention. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are without needing to broadcast it. When you walk into a room grounded, calm, and secure in your identity, people sense it instantly. You don't have to be the loudest voice or the most charismatic personality. Your energy already communicates, I have something to offer. And the beautiful part is, the right people will always feel that. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. Instead of trying to persuade others to see your worth, you act in alignment with it. Your words become fewer but more meaningful. Your boundaries become clearer. You stop chasing validation and start attracting respect. This shift happens when your internal value becomes non-negotiable. When you no longer need external approval to confirm what you already know about yourself. Showing your value also means being selective about where you invest your energy. Not every situation deserves your effort, and not every person deserves your explanation. When you choose your moments intentionally, when you give your best to the right conversations and opportunities, your presence becomes powerful. People notice when you are someone who doesn't waste words or attention. They recognize that when you speak or act, it's meaningful. And here is where real transformation happens. When you stop performing for the world, you start influencing it. Your kindness becomes more genuine. Your confidence becomes more stable. Your interactions become more authentic. People begin to appreciate you for how you make them feel, not for how loudly you try to prove yourself. They remember the steadiness in your character, the reliability in your behavior, and the authenticity in your presence. Because real value doesn't ask to be recognized. It becomes impossible to ignore. People often believe that to get attention, they must push harder, speak louder, and force their presence into the room. They think pressure creates influence, but pressure only creates distance. The human mind is wired to resist anything that feels overwhelming, demanding, or emotionally heavy. If you want people to truly hear you, connect with you, and be drawn to you, you must learn the opposite skill. Create an emotional pull instead of pressure. Emotional pull is created when people feel safe in your presence. Safety is the foundation of influence. When someone feels judged, rushed, or criticized, their walls go up. Their mind closes. They don't listen, they defend. But when someone feels understood, valued, and emotionally comfortable around you, their guard comes down. Their attention softens. Their curiosity grows. Suddenly, they're not just listening because they have to. They're listening because they want to. One of the most effective ways to create emotional pull is through storytelling. Stories bypass the logical brain and connect directly with emotion. When you tell a story, you are not just sharing information, you're painting a picture, creating a feeling, inviting people into your world. Stories are memorable, relatable, and emotionally magnetic. They help people connect with you on a human level, not just a verbal one. Instead of making a point aggressively, you guide them gently toward understanding. Another powerful form of emotional pull comes from listening. Most people listen only to reply, not to understand. They rush the conversation, waiting for their turn to speak. But when you truly listen with eye contact, presence, and patience, people feel seen. And when someone feels seen, they naturally want to stay connected. Listening is not a passive act. It's an active form of influence. It tells the other person your voice matters too. That alone can shift the energy of any interaction. Warmth also plays a major role in emotional pull. Warmth doesn't mean being overly nice or agreeing with everything. It means showing genuine interest, speaking with kindness, and bringing calm energy into conversations. Warmth removes tension. It makes people feel comfortable being themselves around you. And when people feel safe being themselves, they're more open to hearing you. Emotional pull also requires self-control. When you communicate without desperation, without forcing outcomes, without trying to convince people to like you or approve of you, your energy changes. Desperation pushes people away. Calm confidence draws them closer. Influence isn't built by demanding attention. It's built by earning trust. And trust grows where pressure disappears. When you stop trying to overpower people emotionally and start trying to connect with them, you become someone others want to listen to, someone they feel good around, someone they naturally gravitate toward. That is emotional pull, the quiet power that makes your presence felt before you even speak. Owning the space you stand in has nothing to do with being the loudest or the most dominant person in the room. It's not about overpowering others or demanding attention. It's about embodying a quiet self-assurance that tells the world you are comfortable with who you are and confident in the value you bring. People often think presence is a personality trait, but it is actually mindset that expresses itself physically, emotionally, and energetically. When you enter a room with certainty in your posture, calmness in your breath, and purpose in your movements, people notice before you even speak. Every person brings an energy with them and others read it instantly. If you walk in with your shoulders down, avoiding eye contact, shrinking your body, or rushing to blend in, you send an unspoken message, I don't want it to be seen. And the world responds accordingly. But when you walk in tall, grounded, and steady, even if you don't say a word, you radiate a message, I belong here. People are drawn to individuals who carry themselves with this kind of grounded confidence because it signals emotional strength. Owning your space also involves controlling your pace. Fast, frantic movements make you appear nervous or unsure, while slow, deliberate movements convey calm control. When you enter a room without rushing, when you sit down with intention, when you speak without racing through your sentences, people immediately sense confidence. Slowing down is powerful because it shows you are not seeking approval, you're centered within yourself. Eye contact is another essential element of presence. Not aggressive staring, not avoiding eyes, but balanced, warm, steady eye contact. When you look at people as you speak, It signals certainty. When you maintain a calm gaze while listening, it shows openness. Eye contact makes people feel acknowledged, and a person who can acknowledge others without losing their own center naturally commands respect. Your presence is also communicated through your emotional state. When you remain composed, even when the room is chaotic, when you don't react to every shift in the environment, when your mood stays stable despite the noise around you, people see you as a leader. Emotional steadiness is rare, and rare qualities always stand out. The ability to hold your own energy without being shaken by the room makes the room adjust to you. Owning the space you stand in does not require ego. It requires self-acceptance. It requires believing that your presence is enough. You don't need grand gestures. You don't need to overperform. You simply need to show up fully, unapologetically, and authentically. When you do, the world feels it. People treat you differently because you treat yourself differently. You become someone who doesn't ask for space or take space. You naturally occupy it. In a world where everyone is rushing to speak, reacting instantly, and respond emotionally, the real power lies in the person who chooses to pause. Responding instead of reacting is one of the strongest signals of confidence and emotional maturity you can give. A reaction is impulsive. It comes from fear, insecurity, ego, or the need to defend yourself. A response, on the other hand, comes from clarity. It comes from the part of you that thinks clearly, understands the situation, and refuses to hand over control of your emotions to anyone else. When someone says something triggering, most people explode or shut down immediately. Their words come out fast, sharp, unfiltered, and afterward, they regret what they said or how they behaved. That regret happens because the reaction wasn't aligned with who they truly are. It was aligned with a temporary emotional spike. But when you pause, even for a few seconds, you regain your power. Those seconds create a boundary between what you feel and what you choose to express. That small gap is where your strength lies. A thoughtful response also changes how people perceive you. When you speak quickly out of anger, anxiety, or defensiveness, people sense instability. They feel your insecurity. But when you take your time, breathe, and deliver your words with intention, people sense something completely different. Stability. They feel your self-control. They see someone who isn't shaken by emotions, pressure, or conflict. And people naturally respect those who remain steady when others lose control. Responding instead of reacting also gives your words more weight. When someone pauses before speaking, the room subconsciously assumes that what they're about to say is important. Silence creates anticipation. It makes people pay attention. Your presence becomes stronger without you raising your voice or forcing dominance. That one pause can shift the entire energy of a conversation. Another powerful part of responding is that it allows you to choose the version of yourself you want to bring into the situation. Instead of letting the moment control you, you control the moment. You decide if you want to be calm, assertive, compassionate, firm, or neutral. You decide the tone. You decide the direction. You decide whether to escalate or dissolve tension. This control makes you emotionally intelligent and emotionally untouchable. When you stop reacting, people stop being able to provoke you. They can no longer manipulate your mood or pull you into unnecessary conflicts. They learn quickly that you are someone who thinks before acting, someone who speaks with intention, someone who carries self-respect. And once people see you this way, they automatically treat you with more respect. Responding is not silence, it's strategy. It's the decision to choose power over impulse, clarity over chaos, and dignity over emotional chaos. It is one of the clear signs that you know your worth and refuse to hand it away to anyone. Every relationship in your life, whether personal or professional, ultimately reflects the standards you set. People don't treat you based on who you are, they treat you based on what you allow. When you don't communicate your limits, when you stay silent about behaviors that hurt you, or when you accept things that go against your values, you unintentionally teach people that this treatment is acceptable. But the moment you raise your standards calmly, consistently, without anger, the entire way people interact with you begins to shift. Setting a standard is not about being confrontational or dramatic. It is about clarity. It is about knowing what you expect, what you will tolerate, and what you won't participate in. Many people struggle with this because they fear losing connections. They think that if they speak up, someone will walk away. But the truth is, anyone who leaves because you started respecting yourself was never meant to stay. Boundaries don't push away the right people. They filter out the wrong ones. When you set a standard, you communicate your worth without explaining it. For example, when someone talks to you with disrespect and you calmly say, "I don't respond to that tone," you are saying more about your value than any speech could express. When someone cancels on you repeatedly, and you stop rearranging your life to accommodate them. You teach them that your time is not something they can casually waste. When someone tries to push your emotional buttons and you maintain your composure, you show them that you can't be controlled or manipulated. People quickly adjust to the boundaries you enforce. Not the boundaries you think about, not the boundaries you wish, but the boundaries you actually uphold. The moment you hold someone accountable, not with aggression, but with quiet certainty, you shift the dynamic. You stop being passive and you start being respected. You stop being an option and you become someone whose presence has value. Setting standards also protects your emotional landscape. It prevents people from draining your energy, taking advantage of your kindness, or disrespecting your space. You begin to surround yourself with individuals who appreciate you, not those who exploit your silence. Your relationships become healthier, deeper, and more meaningful because they are built on mutual respect, not fear or obligation. And perhaps the most powerful part of setting standards is that it elevates the way you see yourself. Every time you choose respect over approval, you reinforce your own worth. You start carrying yourself with more confidence because you know you no longer betray yourself just to keep the peace. You become someone who leads your life instead of reacting to it. You stop asking for respect. You embody it. The journey to being seen and being heard begins within. It starts with understanding that your presence carries value long before you ever say a word. When you speak with intention, when your words come from clarity and purpose, instead of insecurity and noise, people naturally pay attention. You don't have to raise your voice. You only need to raise your awareness of who you are and what you stand for. That inner strength becomes the foundation of your external influence. As you move through the world, your value becomes visible not through what you say about yourself, but through the way you consistently show up. Your calmness, your discipline, your emotional intelligence, your stability. These are the qualities that make people feel something when you enter a room. When you stop performing for others and start living in alignment with your worth, you no longer chase attention, you attract it. Your energy becomes magnetic because it is rooted in authenticity. Influence deepens when you connect instead of pressure, when you listen instead of dominate, and when you bring emotional safety into your interactions. People are drawn to those who make them feel understood, respected, and valued. When your presence offers that safety, your voice carries more weight. People don't just hear your words, they trust them. And trust is the most powerful amplifier of your presence. And ultimately, being seen and being heard comes down to standards. The way you allow others to treat you becomes the way they continue to treat you. When you respond with intention, hold your boundaries with calm confidence, and stand firm in your worth, your relationships transform. You become someone who leads your life instead of reacting to it. Someone who doesn't shrink to fit in, but grows into the space they deserve. That is the true power of being seen. That is the true art of being heard. Thank you so much for being here and giving your time, your focus, and your energy to this message. Your willingness to grow, to understand yourself deeply, and to step into a more confident version of who you are means more than you know. I hope this speech has sparked something powerful in you, a shift, a reminder, or a moment of clarity. If this message added value to your life, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this content reach more people who need it. Leave a comment and tell me which part spoke to you the most. Your voice matters here. Thank you once again for watching. Until next time, stay confident, stay intentional, and never forget your worth. Goodbye and take care.